Good day, this is Mrs. Del Campo, or you can call me as Ma'am RJ. In this discussion, we will be discussing Module 4, Validating Research Claims, in your class GE 101, College Academic Skills in English. The flow of our discussion will be as follows. So we have six agenda. First, we're supposed to have an activity which is a debate. So we will simply discuss it in a declarative manner. Afterwards, we will be discussing Aristotle's proof of persuasion. We will be connecting our experiences when it comes to debating and when it comes to persuading someone with a classic concept, which is of Aristotle's proof of persuasion. The third agenda will be discussing some of the common fallacies that we have in Filipino culture, which are drawn from the readings that we have for this module. The next one will be source credibility. The material was based on the video, and the discussion will be further elaborated with your knowledge from online and even library sources. And then before we cap our discussions, there will be certain reminders that will be forwarded, and of course, room for clarification afterwards. Moving forward with the next slide, which is about debate, recall a situation wherein you have entered a discussion with a person or with someone else who has a different opinion. More likely, it can be an informal debate, or there are also possible scenarios wherein there is a formal debate, may it be in a course of a classroom, face-to-face discussion, or even online discussion. And there are cases wherein in a certain argument you agree with the other person, or sometimes you are undecided, or for you there are certain contexts that you can say it depends. But there are also cases wherein you completely disagree with another person. For example, there are various possible topics wherein we have different perspectives. First, what is your perspective about divorce? Some of you may go for it. Some of you may say no, it's against my personal belief. Or some of you may still in the borderline thinking of it's a yes or a no. You may pause this recording for you to think of your ideas about divorce. Aside from divorce, let's also try to ponder upon the idea of abortion. So, a lot of people here in the Philippines frown upon the idea of abortion given the fact that we are highly Christian country who is very much adhering to our quote unquote religious belief. However, some of us may be having a radical and modern point of view when it comes to abortion. And some of women's group are forwarding that it can be a possible option. And for the rest, some of you might still be thinking about it. So again, feel free to pause this recording for you to further reflect on your ideas about abortion. Lastly, as a third point for possible internal debate, since we're doing this with a recorded discussion, you may think of a possible political candidate, a presidential candidate. And for example, if you're up for Ping Lacson, Senator Ping Lacson, are you against his presidential candidacy? Are you a go for him? Or it depends. And it may also apply on other 9 candidates that we have who are running for the presidential position. And it's very common nowadays that we have differing opinions about who should be the president of our country, and it goes as well with other political positions that most of the political candidates are vying for. And it's normal for us to have differing opinions when it comes to our political, religious, and other values when it comes to various topics under the sun. Given the fact that we have various ideas when it comes to different topics and we have different inclination towards our beliefs, there are cases wherein we have to persuade other person or the other people when it comes to agreeing with our beliefs. Hence, debate is normal. However, it's not just simply expressing ourselves whenever we do debates, or it's not just simply pushing other people to completely agree with us. We also have to acknowledge the fact that other people have also beliefs by them on themselves. Given this one, we also have to work on with our skills when it comes to persuading other people. And in doing so, we have to know the value of the art of persuasion. The art of persuasion, or also known as rhetoric, was forwarded, or it was started by the classical philosopher Aristotle. Aristotle is the father of rhetoric. In communication, that's how we dub him. And Aristotle forwarded that there are three proofs of persuasion. First, we have the ethos. Second, pathos. Third is logos. First one is the ethos. This is the credibility of the source of information, or in certain cases, it's the credibility of the speaker or of the writer. Ethos has various elements. According to Aristotle, there are four. First is trustworthiness. Apart from trustworthiness, there's also competency. Third is dynamism. And fourth is goodwill. First one, which is trustworthiness, we question if this person, as a source of information, is he or she a trustworthy source? Mapagkakatiwalaan ba? And apart from that, we also ask the competency. Some of us may view a person as a competent person based on his educational attainment, credentials, or even word from others. Marami sa atin, when it comes to, for example, when we're asking about a teacher, we ask in one FEU community sometimes, or we ask feedback from other people wherein, what do you think of this teacher? So we're also gathering facts about a certain source if we think that this person is competent enough. And third one is dynamism. Dynamism is the energy when it comes to speaking, when it comes to delivering, and when it comes to writing. This has something to do with the tone, the writing tone of the source, and the rapport to the readers. Lastly, we are still with ethos as the first proof of persuasion. We have what we call as the goodwill. If the source of information has a good intention and does care for the people who will be receiving his or her information. So that's the first proof of persuasion, which is ethos. For the second proof of persuasion, still with Aristotle, we have what we call as the pathos. Pathos is the appeal to audience, and most of the time, this is more connected with the audience, whether the audience is a listener or the audience is a reader. And it depends on how you steer the emotion of your audience. It leaves a great mark. It leaves a great impression on the audience. Given this, it will also affect on how you can persuade them at the end of the day. And most of the time, pathos is beyond the control of the speaker or of the source of information. If you're a writer, if you're a speaker, most of the time it depends also on the context of the audience. So given this one, if you want to convince the other person when it comes to your argument, and if you want to persuade them, you also have to consider their context. Remember our reading when it comes to the first module when we tried to annotate a reading from Rappler? And in the workshop, we found out that it's vital that we have to acknowledge the experience of other people whenever we try to persuade them. And this comes in when it comes to pathos. You cannot persuade someone if you do not acknowledge where they coming from, or it's harder to persuade other people if you're simply doing it one way. You are just simply expressing yourself. It's also vital that you have to acknowledge your audience emotion, your audience context, and their experience. Third one is logos. So logos is the truth when it comes to reasoning. Nowadays, we see a lot of people forwarding information, and we are in a generation wherein technology has enabled a lot of people to express themselves, share their information and knowledge to the rest of the world. And it's a good thing. However, the paradoxical idea there is that not all of the information, not all of the quote-unquote knowledge that is available to us is truthful. And as someone who is part of the academe, it's vital for us to be critical when it comes to the information that we received when it comes to various sources. So, when we persuade someone, we have to consider the logic of our reasoning. Is it logical enough? Is it factual? Or is it skewed, bent, or we can consider it as a fallacy? Given these three Aristotle's proof of persuasion, our following slides will be focusing only with two, which is ethos and logos. Since pathos is more on appeal to the audience and can be further elaborated with other communication subjects, our focus is to verify and validate the claims of other people so that when we forward our own research claims through writing, we will be able to persuade other people through valuable ethos and logos. So let's begin first with logos, which is what we call as truth of reasoning. When we reason out, sometimes we are carried by our emotions, and there are possibilities that our reasoning can be possibly skewed or tabinge baluktot. And in certain cases, we sometimes fall with the dichotomy of whether we are telling facts or we are talking about fallacies already. We will be discussing various fallacies that most of the time we Filipinos fall for, or in certain cases, we Filipinos usually use whenever we reason out and whenever we try to persuade other people with our argument. So first, let's talk about fallacies. First one, we have ad hominem. So you can see here in your video, there is a circle, okay, a blue circle focusing on the person. So when we talk about ad hominem is wherein you are not focusing in addressing your counter argument, but instead of addressing the argument of your opponent or of the other person, you are targeting the actual person. So there's a difference wherein you address the argument, you answer it, you counter argue it, compared with attacking the person's characteristics, person's physical attributes, and sometimes even, their affiliations. A good example of ad hominem is very much common when it comes to our politics nowadays. A lot of people call certain politicians nicknames. For example, the very common right now is Lenny Lugao. Or in other cases, we have Marcos Ngiwe, something like that. Or, other names that people call that are not directly addressing the concern, which is who is the most competent presidential candidate. This smear campaigns to taint the names of possible presidential candidates. We can possibly call this as mudslinging. It's not really playing the game fairly. You are not addressing the question, why are you a good candidate? Why are you the best candidate? Or if we are supporters of such possible presidential candidates, it's not really addressing the question, but we are simply doing ad hominem fallacy. The next fallacy that we're going to have is the slippery slope. This one is also in your reading. If you will look at the video presentation that we have, you will see here a yellow sign in a box. So someone is slipping over. So that's just a visual representation for you to remember what slippery slope is. But in an essence, slippery slope is wherein someone exaggerates the information so as to convince the other person. For example, when you try to disagree to someone, okay? For example, there is this a woman. This is a common Filipino joke. There is this woman who was being asked, and the other person is borrowing a pen from her. So the guy is borrowing a pen from her, and then the woman said, "I cannot lend you my ball pen. I cannot lend you my pen." Actually, this one is better delivered in Filipino eh. Hindi ko pwedeng ipahiram sa'yo yung ballpen ko kasi pag pinahiram ko sa'yo yung ballpen ko, magkakangitian na tayo, magiging magkaibigan na tayo, magpapalitan na tayo ng number, tapos liligawan mo na ako, tapos magkakaroon tayo ng date, and then may mangyayari, mabubuntis ako, di ko matatapos yung pag-aaral ko, so hindi kita papahiramin ng ballpen. So that example, it's really exaggerated. I opted to use that example so that you can better understand what slippery slope is. So you are trying to forward your idea. However, you don't want to lend your ball pen, but you're exaggerating possible outcomes. And it's a common thing that most people do whenever they talk about a certain argument. They try to preempt the possible outcomes, and to a point that they are preempting it into a too much exaggerated outcome. And given this, if you are trying to persuade someone who is a paranoid person, slippery slope really works for most of them. But in most cases, we have to be critical so as we will not fall in this kind of slope of fallacy, which is slippery slope fallacy. The next fallacy that we're going to have is ad populum, or we call it as bandwagon appeal. So you can see here with the images that you have on your screen, the one on the lower left, okay, the one with hands and there's a wagon, and then a person is thinking about if she will join the bandwagon. So that's a visual representation of the bandwagon appeal fallacy, or the ad populum fallacy. So from the idea itself, a lot of people are convincing you to join the bandwagon because they're already on the wagon. If you're going to use this kind of fallacy as a means of argument, most of the time it works, especially for us Filipinos. And a good example of this one is with marketing firms as sales strategy. You see a lot of products telling that a lot of people are using their products. For example, 90% of women have switched to this shampoo because of this and that and that. So they're using statistics to convince people that a lot of people are using this product. But you have to question this statistical source. Saan ba nila nakuha yung 95% na yon? Same goes with, surveys that you see. For example, surveys reveal that this network is the leading network because of the following numbers, so on and so forth. But you have to question, as someone who is part of the academy, you have to question who are the members of this survey team. Sino ba yung sinurvey nila? Gaano karami? Is it enough representation for the Filipino people or for the population sample to be represented by this number? because a lot of marketing firms, a lot of sales, public relations office, they use this bandwagon appeal to provide an idea that a lot of people are taking this product, a lot of people are believing this idea. In a quick essence, you also have to believe it. Let me provide further example on this. For example, a lot of people in the academe are thinking of endorsing a certain presidential candidate. I will not name it for the purposes of not being apolitical or being neutral, but I don't want to blatantly endorse someone. I have my political agenda, but I don't want to mix it with my professional work. Okay, so I would like to separate personal ideas with professional. So going back, there is a presidential candidate that most of the schools endorse, and I know you know who am I talking about. If not, think about it. Okay, and yeah, it's quite good that a lot of people believe in this presidential candidate, but the question is, there is a possibility for other members of the academe not to critically think about in endorsing this candidate. They just simply adhering to this person because a lot of people are endorsing this presidential candidate already. And in communication theory, we call it as spiral of silence. Since a lot of people are talking about it, you're just simply trying to go with the flow, blending it, falling in the spiral of silence from the idea itself. Okay? Not that I'm saying this person is not good, but as someone who is joining the quote unquote bandwagon, if you really believe that this person is the right person to represent and lead our country, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're simply joining the bandwagon, you have to question yourself. Are you really for this person because of your political ideas? Or are you this person because it sounds cool, it looks cool that you are part of this bandwagon? Okay? Not that I'm saying don't believe on this candidate, but I'm just simply providing, okay, a practical example of the bandwagon appeal fallacy. All right, for the next fallacy that we have is the fourth, the lower right, wherein you see here an orange circle. So it represents an icon which is a straw man. So from the idea itself, our fourth fallacy is the straw man argument or the straw man fallacy. From the idea of a scarecrow, which is a straw man, it represents a fake person to scare a scarecrow. So that idea is somehow similar when it comes to straw man fallacy. You are putting up a quite fake argument to easily scare the scarecrow. I mean, to easily scare the crow. Okay, not the scarecrow. I'm sorry. So, yes. So, same goes with that. Allow me to provide you an example. So, for example, let's have in the context of a romantic relationship. So, a boyfriend and a girlfriend, okay, or partners. So, the boyfriend thought of, providing a good budget with their relationship because both of them are still studying and they can't afford to eat out every time they see each other. So, the boyfriend forwarded a possible solution by persuading the girlfriend to see each other a bit less because they wanted to focus with studies and so that they can work on better with their studies and eat a little less and they can work better with their budget. Now, what the girlfriend will do, I'm not saying all ladies are like this. This is just an example. The girlfriend will simply create a straw man, okay, a possible counter argument that is different, okay. So the girlfriend will twist, okay, intentionally or unintentionally this can happen. So instead of saying eating less, the girlfriend will overreact. So somehow slippery slope rin siya. The girlfriend will overreact and say, so you don't want to see me anymore. Perhaps you don't want to eat out because you don't want to see me and you don't love me. You want to break up. Let's end this relationship. So it's kind of slippery slope. But delivering the slippery slope is it is delivered in a straw man type of argument. You are not really addressing the argument or the persuasion forwarded by the boyfriend, but you are creating your own version of the argument, whether you created it intentionally or unintentionally. And it's a very common relationship concern, miscommunication when it comes to couples. Okay, so that's a possibility of certain people creating, interpreting a possible argument or interpreting an argument in a different manner, and in that way you are somehow adhering to the straw man argument or to the straw man fallacy. So I hope you are following with what we are talking about. So in this slide, we discussed about 4 fallacies that most of the Filipinos are usually into, or they use it, or they fall for it. So let's have a recap. We have ad hominem, slippery slope, bandwagon fallacy or ad populum, and then the last one is the straw man fallacy. Moving forward with the next slide, we are still with some of the common fallacies that we can observe that is being used in our Filipino culture. So allow me to address 2 more, though in your reading there are more actually. So the next one we have here is the red herring. If you can see here on the upper photo, a building is burning down and then there's this person standing, and instead of focusing on the main concern in the photo, the person is simply directing you towards a fish. Okay, so this one is what we call as red herring. Or, to put it simply, it's more of diversionary tactics. Instead of discussing the main concern, you are diverting the concern to other things. And this is a very common public relations strategy. Especially when a certain PR team is trying to make up for a certain icon, whether the person is an artist, a politician, a marketing brand, an icon, so on and so forth. Most of the time, red herring is used to persuade other people that the credibility of this icon is still good. Apart from public relations and marketing, red herring is also, used in certain cases, like in our personal relationships. For example, there is this common relationship dynamics when it comes to parents and their young children. So, for example, the young child asked his mother to buy a new toy, okay? But the mother diverted the attention of her son, by simply telling, "Oh, it's okay, anak, kakain tayo sa Jollibee mamaya." I'm sure you have heard of this. Perhaps you have experienced this. We do not know. But there's a possibility that it's, unintentional or intentional, it's still considered as a red herring fallacy. You try to persuade other people by diverting their attention, and that's what we call as red herring. So in this photo, the main problem is the fire, but you are focusing on other things. Next one, and which is the last one for our discussion when it comes to logos. We are still with Aristotle's logos. We are trying to dissect the difference between fact and fallacy. The last fallacy that we're going to discuss in this recorded discussion is what we call as post hoc ergo propter hoc. Okay, so it's quite a long Latin term. Let me repeat it. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. So now, in this fallacy, it's somehow similar with syllogism. When you say syllogism, you have 3 points. So, point A, for example, you are saying Aristotle is a mathematician. Second point, all mathematicians are male. And then, third point, you can say Aristotle is male. Is a guy, is a male, okay? So from point A, you connected point A with point B and you come up with a conclusion. And most syllogisms are based on rational facts. But there are cases wherein syllogisms are used in another level wherein the connection of point A and point B are not rational. And in such cases, when they are not that rational, or if you will call it directly, they are irrational, we can call them as post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. Example, so we have here in this last photo. So first idea, this is the point A. You will see here the box on the left. I hummed a tune about clouds. And then point B, after this, it rained a lot. And then you came up with point C, which is your conclusion. Therefore, cloudy hums change the weather. So, quit humming, okay? And, a lot of us Filipinos believe in such cases. We Filipinos are considerably superstitious when it comes to such cases. Whenever you see a rainbow and then it's raining, we have a lot of things to say about it. Or whenever you see, for example, a black cat and then a strange thing happened to you, you are now coming up with certain conclusion that it's a bad luck. So those are not considerably syllogisms, but they are considered as fallacies. A lot of possible post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacies are very much common with us Filipinos given the nature of our culture. And to put a quote with that, I think it's vital for us to be more critical when we delineate fallacies from facts, because as you have mentioned in the video material that you have in your module, there are a lot of facts. However, there are also a lot of opinions. The problem is if certain people who has their opinions and they try to persuade other people and they will claim that their opinion is a fact, not simply not it's not an opinion, but they're establishing that it's a fact. That's the scary part. And we as members of the academe, you being a student of this class, it's vital that you know how to dissect, how to delineate which is a fact and which is not, or which is a fallacy. Since we're talking about credibility and critical thinking, let's move forward with the next slide, which is source credibility. When we talk about source credibility, it's vital for us to ask if the source of information that we are talking about is a credible source, is a good representation of knowledge and information that we are talking about in our, for example, writing. So, for example, you are about to write a persuasive writing. It's vital that the source of information is based on facts, not just simply fallacies and opinions. So, as a student, you have various possible sources. So, you have your library, and of course, you have Google. When it comes to library, it's very much acceptable because books are peer-reviewed, the materials in the library are academic based. However, when it comes to online sources, for example, Google, it's free for everyone. Everyone who has internet connection, who has gadget to upload their idea, and of course they have their idea that they want to share, they can share it online. It's a good thing, but the bad thing there is that you do not know their agenda when it comes to sharing such ideas. That's why someone who is, adhering when it comes to getting information, when you try to adhere when it comes to research, you have to validate the sources of information that you are presenting in your writing, in this case of our class. When you validate the source of your information and to prove its credibility, it needs to pass the CRAP test. The CRAP test was already discussed in the video material, and I will be forwarding a PDF copy of the CRAP questionnaire. So you don't need to memorize these questions, but if you read them most of the time, you'll be able to understand them by heart, and from time to time, you will be more critical, hopefully, when it comes to the sources of information that you will be using, that you will be believing in, and you will be sharing as a part of the academe. So the CRAP test stands for the first letters that we have there. So the C stands for currency, R for relevance, A for authority, A for accuracy, and of course, purpose. In the PDF file that I'll be sharing with you, there are questions there that will help you understand what do we mean by this. So the acronym CRAP stands for this one. So we have the currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. So I will not be repeating everything in the PDF file, but I'll simply run through what do these terms forward. So first, you have here the currency. You will be asking, is the source of information recent? How recent is this one? Is it published 10 years ago? There's no problem actually when a source material is published more than 10, 20 years ago. However, you have to consider its relevance. Is it still applicable when it comes to the topic that you are talking about? When we talk about currency, in most cases in research, they usually allow up to 10 years of currency or of recency. However, we also have to consider classics, because in most cases, the recent sources base their ideas from their previous sources, and most cases these previous sources come from the classics, like of course the ideas of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and other classical philosophers and scientists that we have. And then, since we already mentioned relevance, you'll also ask, is it connected with the topic that I'm talking about, or is it too far out? Make sure you will not be doing a possible slippery slope. For example, the reading that you have, the review of related literature that you are reading is, for example, the focus is more on the teenagers, but your focus is more on the baby boomers, the older ones, our senior citizens. So definitely, there is a discrepancy with that. And the best thing to do with that case, or in such cases, is you have to acknowledge the discrepancy. The source of information focuses on a different sample population, but in your case, you're focusing on a different sample population as well. And then, we're still with the CRAP test. We have here the authority. So here, it's connected with ethos. You are questioning who said this information. Is this person the right person? Is he or she the right person to talk about such ideas? And you have to consider there is this what we call as Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay? A lot of people think that they know a lot of things already about a certain topic, but apparently they're not. To put it simply, akala mo matalino ka na dun sa idea na yon. Hindi. Hindi pa yun. Okay? So you have to watch out for possible creators, content providers, that they are talking about the topic, that it's based on my experience. I have experienced this firsthand. Remember, your firsthand experience may not, thoroughly represent the experiences of other people. Same goes with you as a writer, as a student. Your personal experience may not solely represent the experiences of other people as well when it comes to the topic that you are talking about. That's why it's vital that you question, be critical when it comes to the authority or the source of information that you are citing in your study, in your writing, or even when you are talking and convincing other people. Next one, we have the accuracy. And I think this is one of the most vital part of the CRAP test. So, of course, you have to double check the logos of what they are saying. Is the content, the source, is it accurate? Is it truthful? Is it logical? Or is it biased? Is it a bit of an effect of a Dunning-Kruger effect? And it's connected with the last letter, which is letter P, the purpose. Perhaps the source of information has delivered this persuasive content because they have their agenda. A lot of people are, often victimized by such writings wherein they write specific ideas and then towards the end, they're simply promoting a product, okay? Or they're simply promoting their personal gains. So you have to question, what is the agenda of this person? What is the agenda of this source of information? Why are they talking about this topic? Those are some of the minor points that you have to consider when we are talking about source credibility. And it would be helpful that you review the PDF material that I'll be sending, which is the CRAP test. This is the credible source checklist. And more likely, hopefully, you'll be able to use this in your other subjects as well when you are writing academically. Okay, so let's wrap it up. We have discussed various topics already. We started with debate, and then we connected it with Aristotle's proof of persuasion, and we highlighted through two proofs of Aristotle's concepts. We have the ethos and the logos. So for the logos, we discussed the various fallacies, and for the ethos, we talk about source credibility, especially when it comes to writing, because there's also source credibility when it comes to speaking. So the focus or the line of source credibility that we are talking here is, of course, it has something to do with research claims that are used in writing. Now, when it comes to reminders, we have 4. So allow me to highlight what are the reminders for you to work on. So first, we have the workshop through Canvas discussion. It will be asynchronous as well. I will be publishing it tomorrow by Wednesday. And then FA4 is a Canvas quiz. And then Wednesday, you will be working on with Academic Integrity Day. So the output for the AID or the Academic Integrity Day will be considered as a workshop output. You have to work on when it comes to APA citation. Actually, with the preview of the AID, it will be a preparation for our last module, which is citation. And I think it's a good springboard for us to have an idea, so that you'll have an idea on what we will have with the last module. And of course, you'll still be encouraged to continue working with your book for the extensive reading program, ERP. So for some of you, I have read in your paper, some of you are already done reading, and I'm proud of you people. And for those who are still working their way when it comes to reading, not everyone is, a book lover, or not everyone loves reading. We have to acknowledge that fact. And I still commend those people, despite the fact that they do not love reading, but they're still trying to work their way when it comes to this program. I applaud you and I appreciate the effort that you are working on. It doesn't happen overnight, but it takes certain effort to cultivate a habit. And trust me, reading is a good habit that you have to work on for you to become a good lifelong learner. So these are the reminders that we have. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to send a message if you have clarifications with our discussions in this recording. And I hope you're good, you're doing good, and keep safe and stay healthy. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.